Welcome to Adu Globe. Discover new ideas, learn exciting things, and be amazed every day. Breaking news from the battlefield. Tonight Ukraine faces one of the heaviest waves of Russian missile and drone attacks since the war began. Over 500 drones and 45 missiles rained down across major cities, turning the night sky into a battlefield of fire and fear. As missiles struck residential areas, entire neighborhoods were left in ruins. Families rushed to shelters, children wrapped in blankets, while firefighters battled towering flames in the heart of Ukraine's cities. But Ukraine did not stay silent. In a dramatic counterstrike, Ukrainian drones ignited massive fires at Russian oil refineries, a direct hit on Moscow's economic lifeline. This conflict is no longer about single battles. It's about survival, endurance, and global consequences. As both sides intensify their strikes, the question remains: how much longer can this war continue before it spirals out of control? It was a night Ukraine will never forget. Within just a few hours, 14 regions were struck by waves of Russian missiles. The skies lit up with fire as if the horizon itself was burning. Families rushed into basements. Sirens screamed across cities, and the streets echoed with the sound of collapsing walls. Russian state media quickly declared it a display of power, an image of unstoppable dominance. But for those on the ground, it was a night of terror, panic, and despair. As dawn broke, the true scale of destruction became visible. Entire neighborhoods were reduced to ruins, schools, hospitals, and apartment blocks torn apart by the blasts. Rescue workers dug with bare hands to pull survivors from the rubble. The silence of early morning was broken only by the cries of children calling for their parents. And while Ukraine mourned, Russian channels proudly aired footage of the missile launches, describing them as precise strikes against military infrastructure. But was that really the truth, or just another story meant to justify the horror? On one side, Moscow's narrative was clear. This was a message, a warning, a declaration that Russia could strike anywhere, anytime. But on the other side, Ukrainian officials released shocking evidence: shattered classrooms, destroyed maternity wards, burned out buses. Was this a demonstration of strength, or the deliberate targeting of the most vulnerable? For the world watching, the truth became a battlefield in itself. Newsrooms scrambled, fact-checkers worked overtime, but the scars on Ukrainian soil told their own story. Beyond the bombs, there was something far more dangerous: fear. The attack was not just about destroying buildings, but about breaking morale. Fear is a weapon that spreads faster than fire. With every explosion, the message was clear: nowhere is safe. But history has shown that fear can have two outcomes: it can weaken a nation, or it can unite it even stronger than before. And for Ukraine, the question now was simple: would this night of terror weaken their spirit, or ignite their resolve to fight back harder? Just as the smoke of Russia's overnight strikes was settling, the dawn brought an unexpected twist. Flames suddenly erupted inside Russian territory. Ukraine had launched a counterattack so bold, so daring, that it sent shockwaves across the region. Within minutes, two of Russia's major oil refineries were in flames, refineries that had been the backbone of its military fuel supply chain. Millions of liters of vital fuel, once destined for tanks, aircraft, and supply trucks, were swallowed by fire. The images spread like wildfire on social media. Videos showed fireballs lighting up the night sky, while local residents whispered in shock. No one had expected the war to pierce so deep into Russian soil. Analysts quickly pointed out that these refineries were not random targets. They were carefully chosen, because without fuel, even the most powerful army slows down. This was not just an explosion, it was a message. Yet with every strike comes risk. Military experts warn that targeting energy infrastructure can provoke harsher retaliation. Would Russia respond with even greater force? Or had Ukraine just shifted the balance of the battlefield? No one knew for sure, but one thing was clear: the war was no longer confined to the front lines. The fire was now burning inside Russia itself. And so the question remains: was this counterattack just a strike of desperation, or the beginning of a new phase of the war? Ukraine had lit up the Russian night with fire, but could those flames actually push Russia back, or would they ignite an even deadlier storm? The story did not end with the refinery fires. Just hours later, another blaze erupted. this time inside Russia's Bryansk region. Drones, silent in the night sky, descended with precision and struck a vital fuel pumping station. In moments, tanks of fuel, once meant to power Russia's tanks and bombers, were engulfed in fire. The flames rose high, painting the sky red, as the heart of another supply chain collapsed before the world's eyes. For military experts, the Bryansk strike was more than just another explosion. This station had been a lifeline, pumping fuel across critical routes that kept armored vehicles moving and aircraft flying. By targeting it, Ukraine wasn't only destroying fuel, it was striking directly at the veins of Russia's battlefield logistics. The message was clear: no place, no system, and no supply chain was untouchable anymore. But the impact of such a strike goes beyond the battlefield. When supply stations burn, civilian populations nearby live in fear of both explosions and shortages. Bryansk residents described the night as one of terror, with fireballs rising above their homes and sirens piercing the darkness. It was a reminder that in modern war, infrastructure itself becomes the front line, and ordinary people are forced to live with the consequences. And so, the fire at Bryansk leaves the world with another question. Was this attack a decisive blow to Russia's fuel lifelines, or just another warning shot in a war that seems to escalate with every passing day? The pumping station once fueled machines of war. Now, its charred ruins fuel debates across the globe. The flames of war in Eastern Europe did not remain a regional story. Within hours, world capitals began to respond. At the United Nations, urgent meetings were held as diplomats exchanged sharp words, some condemning Russia's strikes, others warning against escalation. Across the ocean, Washington and European capitals issued statements, standing with Ukraine but carefully weighing their next steps. The war was no longer just about territory, it was about global stability. In NATO headquarters, a different kind of silence filled the air. Behind closed doors, military officials analyzed every drone strike, every refinery explosion, every new tactic on the battlefield. To the public, leaders spoke of support and solidarity. But in private, questions grew louder. Can Ukraine's drone strategy actually shift the balance of the war? Or does this escalation risk drawing the world into a wider conflict? Meanwhile, in Moscow, the strikes were portrayed differently. Russian officials called the attacks acts of provocation, while state media emphasized resilience and strength. In Kyiv, the mood was the opposite: cautious celebration, with officials suggesting that this was only the beginning of a new phase of warfare. And so, between condemnation, analysis, and propaganda, the world watched a conflict that felt both local and global at the same time. And so, the question remains unanswered. The United States and Europe condemn the strikes, yet quietly study Ukraine's drone playbook. The UN calls for restraint, while NATO weighs the risks of escalation. Every side is speaking, but the world wonders, in this war of words and fire, who will take the next decisive step? The silence in global halls of power may be louder than the explosions themselves. The war in Eastern Europe has moved beyond borders, beyond simple battles of territory. What began as an invasion has transformed into a test of technology, endurance, and resilience. Cities lie in ruins, fuel depots burn, and streets once filled with daily life now echo in silence. For millions, this is not just a war on maps, it is a daily struggle for survival. Russia continues to display its power, showcasing missiles and airstrikes as proof of dominance. Ukraine responds with drones and daring strikes, signaling determination and innovation. Yet, in between these acts of force lies the human cost: families displaced, children growing up in shelters, and towns where normal life feels like a distant memory. This war is no longer just about weapons. It is about spirit, will, and the race to adapt. But one question remains unanswered, echoing louder than the explosions themselves. In a war of strength versus resilience, who will ultimately prevail? Friends, the future of this war is still uncertain. Where do you think this conflict is heading? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this video gave you new insights, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more updates.